Welcome to HiBiz News.
Hello, welcome to HiBiz News.
Hello and welcome to HiBiz TV.
Hello and welcome to HiBiz News.
So, Mr. Rajendran, we were at a point in the first half of the discussion where we understood the transition that moved in from the Kerala High Court, the judgment of the Kerala High Court that was then moved to the Supreme Court as a challenge. Can you take us through that particular sequence now?
Yes. We have seen the first amendment to the Constitution, Article 31A and 31B were introduced. 31B enabled every state to come up with Land Reforms Act to attain the objective under Article 39B and C for equal distribution, common good theory and so on. Very many states in the country have come up with various land acquisition laws. Punjab has come up with Punjab Security and Land Tenures Act, under which the government of Punjab wanted to acquire the land of family of Henry and William Golaknath. They were holding about 500 plus acres of land. The government of Punjab said you can hold only 30 acres per head and balance will have to be given to the state. Golaknath challenged this before the Supreme Court in 1966. And that was decided on 27th of February 1977 by a bench consisting of 11 judges of Supreme Court headed by the then Chief Justice Koka Subbarao. Justice Sikri, who headed as Chief Justice of Keshwananda Bharati's case, was also part of Golaknath's bench. Golaknath's case laid a rule stating that Part 3 of the Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights, cannot be amended under Article 368 by the Parliament. So, prior to that, there were decisions by Supreme Court which gave right to recognize the right of Parliament to amend that or bring about law which affects Part 3 of the Constitution. So that was all reversed by Golaknath's case. Now, Golaknath's case has become a thorn for the government because the Part 3 covers the right to property, right to own the property, possess the property, etc., etc. And majority of the issues affecting the society was covered under fundamental rights. Now, when the challenge of Kerala land reforms was brought before the Supreme Court in 1970 and during the pendency of it, the government of India brought in several other amendments, but 3 of them had direct bearing on the case which was pending before the Supreme Court. Now, Keshwananda Bharati's writ petition was also joined by another 3 writ petitions. So, all 4 of them were to be decided by the bench. Now, the amendments which were brought in by the then government, which had direct bearing, are Amendment 24, 25th Amendment and 29th Amendment. I will only touch upon those amendments, what were they, so that we understand, why the Parliament had to look at all this comprehensively. 24th Amendment, which was brought in on 5/11/1971, was calculatively to circumvent the effect of Golagna's case. By 24th Amendment, there was a clause 4, which was introduced under Article 13, which says this article does not cover the amendment powers of the Parliament under Article 368. Similarly, they introduced another clause 3 under Article 368, saying Article 13 does not apply on Article 368. They wanted to circumvent the effect of Golagna's case, so that was 24th Amendment. Now, 25th Amendment. By 25th Amendment, they introduced 31C, Article 31C, which was in a drastic character, having two parts. One is 31C, any Land Reforms Act which is brought in will not be deemed, even if it affects the part 3, and the second part of 31C says the court cannot look into it.
So basically the idea was to keep the courts out of any judgment.
Courts away from all this amendment. Whatever Parliament wanted to do, supremacy of Parliament, because Parliament wanted to show that legislature is supreme, whereas what is envisioned in our constitution is they are equal. Three arms. Now, 29th Amendment, which was brought in on 9/6/1972, placed the Land Reforms Act brought in by Kerala government under Schedule 9. Thereby they sealed the whole thing. Now, all these amendments were made part of Keshavananda Bharati's case because that directly affects the question which was raised in Keshavananda Bharati's case, the very validity of introduction of Land Reforms Act by Kerala, the legality, illegality, and since they were placed under Schedule 9, all these three amendments were also brought in by way of amendment interpretation, and then the scope of looking at the issue was widened. So Supreme Court had to look at whether the amendments brought in under 24th Amendment, 25th Amendment and 29th Amendment were valid. Could the Parliament amend the way they want the Constitution?
Or put a basic restriction.
They wanted to basically examine this. Now, when we look at the issue framed, that is of the scope of Keshavananda Bharati's case, can't say, has taken a diversion, whereas the scope, the umbrella has become bigger for the Supreme Court to look at. So Supreme Court focused, this particular bench of 13 judges focused on the amending powers of Parliament under Constitution, and also the powers under Article 13(2) to bring about a legislation. So when you look at the judgment of Sikri, it says what is the extent of power conferred by Article 368, that is for amendment, apart from Article 13(2) on the Parliament. So the whole focus is shifted to this particular issue.
And into the 7-6 split judgment.
Yes, 7-6 split, but majority,
11 of them still wrote a judgment individually.
11 of them wrote judgment, 2 of them joined with others.
I think it was an interesting move because had the Chief Justice voted the other way around, things would have changed. And I think Justice Sikri was supposed to retire the next day. And I think that was a crucial part of the entire thing. Or 2 days later, he retired.
Now, whatever it is, we will confine ourselves as far as this particular judgment is concerned.
Okay, sure.
Okay, then, I mean, politics apart. Justice Shelat was joined by Grover. So, two of them together, they wrote their judgment. Hegde was joined by Mukherjee. So, all 13 actively took part. 11 wrote, running into 701 pages of judgment. And the essence of it was taken finally and found that 9 stand in 1 as against the remaining 4. So that's how.
So technically, it is not a 7-6 if you speak of.
Yes, but there are other issues on which, from 6, 2 were leaning towards the viewpoint of 7 other judges. Now, when we look at, we have seen what is the issue on which the Supreme Court focused to decide this. I will take paragraph 11 and 12, 4-5 lines that gives the essence of the stand taken by the petitioner and the government. First, I will read paragraph 11 out of Sikri's judgment, which amplifies the stand taken by the respondents. Respondents is none other than the government of India and the states. The respondents claim that the parliament can abrogate fundamental rights such as freedom of speech and expression, freedom to form associations or unions, and freedom of religion. They claim that democracy can even be replaced and one-party rule be established. Indeed, short of repeal of constitution, any form of government with no freedom to citizens can be set up by Parliament by exercising its power under Article 368. This is the dangerous stand which was taken by the government of India. I just picked up this particular paragraph to emphasize and look at it. By looking at 4 or 5 lines, you can envision the tyranny into which the citizens of this, the tyranny of the representatives elected by citizens.
We could have become a one-party rule or a dictatorship.
Even this constitution itself would have been scrapped. I mean, that is the kind of dangerous stand which was taken by. I picked up this particular paragraph to look at the impact it would have caused.
So basically, Mr. Rajendran, when you look at it, most of the law students and the practicing lawyer, and this judgment has been quoted in all the recent, including I think the appointment of judges that was there. The government sort of set up a commission for that. Even that struck down under this particular law.
NJSC.
Yeah, JSC, yeah.
NJSC.
So when you look at this, the Keshwananda Bharati case in totality, and when you're speaking to a common man, how will you tell him that impact of that judgment? Because
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. You know, what this judgment has given to us, probably I am able to speak only because of this judgment. Otherwise, if the government were to decide other way, today I wouldn't have been able to speak if Supreme Court had decided other way. Now, when we look at paragraph 12, the petitioner's side, Sikri has summed up, saying that on the other side, petitioners, it is urged that the power of Parliament is much more limited. The petitioners say that the Constitution gave the Indian citizens freedom which were to subsist forever, and the constitution was drafted to free the nation from any future tyranny of representatives of the people. Look at the vision the architects of our constitution had. Even your own brother were to turn against you, he is prevented. That is what the stand which was taken, advanced before the Supreme Court on behalf of Keshwananda Bharati and other petitioners by none other than Palkhiwala and battery of other lawyers. It is this freedom from tyranny which, according to the petitioners, has been taken away by impugned Article 31C, which has been inserted by 25th Amendment. If Article 31C is valid, they say hereafter Parliament and state legislatures and not the Constitution will determine how much freedom is good for the citizens.
So there cannot be a percentage of freedom here now. Basically, it's this or that. That's it.
No, whether the freedom has to be given, citizens have to be at the mercy of the ruling class.
So it basically put in a doctrine there, isn't it? That's what the
No,
word used was.
I'm coming to that. Then, this is what has been summed up by Sikri in his judgment. What was the presentation by the petitioners and what was the presentation of respondent? The petitioners have very well presented, showing the Supreme Court, look, we should not be made at the mercy of legislatures. On the contrary, the Constitution was made in such a way, the Constitution is supreme.
That's a basic fundamental part.
Constitution is the foundation on which the government, being a mere superstructure, is going to be built. You can't reverse it, and Constitution cannot be made at the mercy and the government becomes the foundation. Now, I do not want to go into the details of discussions which took place. 13 judges, and this is one of the cases which was heard during the longest period, that is 69 days continuous hearing. The largest bench ever constituted in independent India. Thereafter, there is no bench, to the best of my knowledge. And this is one of the longest judgment also, with commentaries, head notes, so on and so forth. It runs almost about 900 plus pages. Though the written part by 11 judges runs to about 701 pages. Now, what is the conclusion Supreme Court has drawn out of it? Supreme Court, after discussion, looking at the fundamental rights, the framing of Article 368, the objective behind it, the object of creating Part 3 as fundamental right and Article 13, which prevents tinkering with Part 3, etc., was delved into in detail with reference to very many judgments which was decided in India and other countries, because our constitution is an amalgamation of various constitutions from world over. The best part we picked up, and that is why it still remains as elixir. Probably the longest constitution world has got, when it was initially introduced. 22 part, 395 articles, 8 schedules. This is one of the longest written constitution world has got today.
So one needs to thank Keshwananda Bharati ji for what he saw then, the way he went to fight this case. Because
Yes. Now,
otherwise we would have
I'll come to. I'll also explain what is the conclusion which was drawn by Supreme Court, this particular bench. Golaknath's case was overruled. Golaknath ruled that Part 3 cannot be touched. That was overruled. But Supreme Court said this is most important. Under Article 368 does not enable Parliament to alter the basic structure or framework of the Constitution. What is the basic structure? You get it from the preamble. That is the reason why I read preamble little ago. Now, basic structure says that it's a sovereign democratic republic. That cannot be changed. The freedom given, the justice, equality, fraternity, etc., liberty given to the citizens of this country cannot be taken away. And when it was envisioned as a democratic country, it cannot be changed. So, they said Article 368 does not enable Parliament to alter the basic structure or the framework of the Constitution. That is where it says doctrine of basic structure was introduced by this particular judgment. Whereby, since Golaknath's case was overruled, Constitution 24th Amendment was declared valid. All right. Clause 4 under Article 13, Clause 3 under 368 is perfectly all right. When it came to 25th Amendment, Supreme Court said the portion which says that the court cannot look into, that is one of the basic structure of our Constitution. Because every law which is passed, if it is repugnant to the provisions of Constitution, it is subject to review, judicial review by the judiciary, and that cannot be taken away. You can't say, please, you can't, judiciary has no business to look into the law passed by the Parliament. No, that is not what is stated in the basic structure of the Constitution. Hence, that portion cannot remain. That was declared void. Now, when Justice Sikri very interestingly looked at, when examining 31C, which was part of 25th Amendment, also commented upon 31B, which was introduced by First Amendment, in which also it says, by virtue of the view that even if the state brings about a law which, even if tinkers with Part 3,
cannot be allowed.
It will have to be declared valid. So Sikri commented on that, saying that even 31B is illegal. It goes beyond the basic structure. However, since it stood the time, we will see any law passed by every state, whether it infringes any part of Part 3 of the Constitution. If it does, we will declare it as
so that part
illegal.
is still open.
Yes, so 31B, though it was bad, it remains. They said the consequent effect of 31B would be the statutes brought in by various states. That we will test if it violates or infringes into, because you can't give power to the, under federal system, to state to tinker with the Constitution. Constitution can be touched, especially Part 3, only by the Parliament but not the states. Otherwise, every state will start diluting.
I think it happened with the reservations policy also in various states.
That is where again it is tested. Now the first part of 25th Amendment, first part was declared valid, and second part, which says the court cannot look into it, was declared void and removed. The Constitution 29th Amendment, which puts Kerala Land Reforms Act under Schedule 9 was upheld. So this is the sum and substance of, how Keshavananda Bharati's challenge on Land Reforms Act of Kerala evolved into something bigger which touched upon the foundation of the constitution of our country, whereby this bench declared basic structure of constitution cannot be touched under Article 368 even if you have brute majority in parliament. You may have majority, you may pass, no, it will not be valid as long as this judgment remains.
That, Mr. Rajendran,
So,
I think that pretty exhaustively explains. I think any law student would like to watch this video because there's so many legal points taken up here. But to a common man, if you got to explain this particular judgment that was there in the Keshavananda Bharati case, which is still quoted in many courts across the country, basically gave Indian people that freedom which is enshrined in our constitution by our founders of our constitution, the people who wrote our constitution like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and others. We got to remember that at one point in time, Indira Gandhi didn't like this judgment. In fact, after this, she punished 3 of the senior most judges, bypassing them to become, they were supposed to become Chief Justice, and just appointed Justice A.N. Ray as the Chief Justice, and the other 3 judges resigned immediately. That later on led on to bigger things in life. Justice H.R. Khanna was similarly punished from becoming the Chief Justice. And later on, emergency was imposed. And we know what happened in emergency. Our freedom was trampled, people were imprisoned for varying periods, everything was struck down, our freedom was just not existing. But of course, she defeated after that, and India learnt a lot of lessons. So when you look back at that seer from a small town, a village at the Etanir Math in Kerala, in Kasaragod district, why did he set out to fight a battle that was for each one of us? And when we look back at his life, and we should thank him for it, and also we could definitely thank brilliant lawyers like Nani Palkhiwala, Soli Sorabji and others who fought this case. I think India owes all of them a big round of thanks for saving our constitution and saving our freedom. Thank you for watching.